Hey, friends, welcome back to your Joyful Order podcast. Today's episode is a powerful one, especially as we lean into Father's Day. We're talking about fatherhood, but not just on the surface. This is a deeper conversation about the role of a father, the impact of his presence or absence, and how it shapes our identity, our relationships, and even how we see God. And I want to say this right from the start. This episode is for everybody, for the men and the women, because whether your experience with your father was beautiful, broken, or maybe somewhere in between, it has impacted you. And my hope is that today's conversation brings clarity, understanding, and healing. And joining me today for this conversation is Cliff Wright. Cliff is a minister, a coach, and the founder of Hope for Families Ministry. And he has a deep passion for strengthening families and equipping fathers to lead well. He's been married to his wife for over 40 years. He's a father of three, a grandfather of six, and he truly carries a heart for this conversation for both having lived experience and years of ministry. So let's get ready to dive into this conversation with Cliff. Hey everyone, I'm Leslie Martinez, and you're listening to your Joyful Order podcast. Each week, I will bring you joyful stories that will motivate and inspire you, and at the same time, bring order to your everyday life. Let's just say the show will be a mixture of preaching and teaching with a kick of motivation from your girl here. Welcome to your Joyful Order podcast. Welcome back to your Joyful Order podcast. Today, I'm joined by Cliff Wright. Cliff, I am so honored to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. And I love the name of your podcast, your Joyful Order podcast. That's really a wonderful name. So thank you again, Leslie. It's certainly an honor to be on your
Oh,
podcast.
thank you. That name was ordained name. I'll just say that. That was given to me by God himself. And I want to talk about what you're doing because the name of your ministry, Quarterback Daddy, that's what we're here to talk about today.
Mhm.
Fatherhood, and we're just about to head into Father's Day right now when this episode
Yes.
and you are doing something phenomenal, Cliff. And I want to start there with this message because I think your message, A Quarterback Daddy, is so unique. So, can you tell us what Quarterback Daddy means?
Well, quarterback daddy, in essence, what it is to help fathers, inspire fathers to have transformative relationships with their children. That's it. Very, very concise. That's our mission. That's our vision.
And where did that vision come from for you, Cliff?
You know what? I think it started really when I was a little boy. To be honest with you, God gave it to me, the actual name, through a series of encounters that I had with him. Um, I was I'm a certified life purpose coach like yourself, and in my coaching, they ask us to identify our niche. And once I really began to look at my life, I realized that my niche is fathers. And I'll be transparent. My first marriage did not work out. I have a 49-year-old son, and so um, I was trying to earn his love and forgiveness back for many years. And about 12 years ago, his heart softened, but I had to keep chasing him. And one of the things that I think that helped him to really come to that place where he was willing to let me back in, I told him that my youngest son and my daughter, you know, my son Jai, they're younger than him and everything, but I told him that they could not replace the hold of my heart of him.
Hmm.
And I believe that was kind of the thing that caused his heart to soften, that he realized that, you know, without him being in my life was incomplete. And so um, the Lord blessed my wife and I, Sandria. on our 40th anniversary to go to Hawaii. I had promised her that we're going to go to Hawaii one of these days. And so, on our 40th anniversary, we went to Hawaii. But prior to that, I had been invited to speak at a father and family conference. And I had my PowerPoint all written and everything. And we got to Hawaii, and we had some complications with our travel arrangements coming back. And so on our way back, we literally had to change airlines. And I'm not going to make it long-winded, but once we got on the airplane, we were the last persons to get on that plane. And when I sat down in my seat, I was just so relieved. And I turned on a movie, and it was a movie about Kurt Warner, the NFL quarterback for the St. Louis Rams at the time. And so when I began to watch it, the story went like this. He was in college. He was a very, very gifted quarterback, but his coach would not put him in the game. And he would ask him, "Why don't you put me in the game?" And he
Mhm.
said, "Because I need you to stay in the pocket." He said, "If you don't stay in the pocket, I'm not going to put you in the game." And so he finally went ahead and mastered the skill of staying in the pocket. And he went through all kind of hurt, bruised ribs, injuries, everything, because he learned how to master the art of staying in the pocket. After that, um, I was my wife and I went on another trip, and it was an incident. I'm not going to go into what that incident was, but I had to be home, take off from work for a few days, and I this movie came on, another movie about quarterbacks, and God had already given me the name Quarterback Daddy,
Mhm.
but then when I was recovering, I he gave me the motto, and he said, "Winning by staying in the pocket." And that's what God really showed me. He said, "You stayed in the pocket long enough with your oldest son, and you raised your two younger children, and I'm a grandfather 6 times over. You learn how to stay in the pocket." So it all just came to me at that time. He
Mhm.
said, "If you stay in the pocket, that's how you're going to win." And so those two movies really, and three encounters with the Lord really,
Yeah.
was how Quarterback Daddy and Winning by Staying in the Pocket was birthed.
Wow. Cliff, you have me in tears already. There's so much to impact to that. I love that because it just gives so much intention to the role of father and staying in the pocket. I love football, Cliff. I know football. Football is
Okay.
my game. I can talk football with you all day long. So the fact
Wow.
yeah, the fact that you're talking quarterback, like, I myself have had so many God analogies through the game of football also.
Wow. Yes, yes.
From so many different perspectives and so many of those positions on there and looking at the quarterback and how they lead the team, right?
Mhm.
And that role of a father, I can see so many similarities in that, and because I know football, like, I just
Yes, that's
that's why
wonderful.
it touched my heart where I'm like, "Wow, God can use a game and teach us so much even just by those different positions, and it's so important
Yes,
that that quarterback stays in the pocket. They have to
yes,
lead with intention, with integrity. They have to trust their line. They have to
yes,
know the routes, know where to go. We running a screen? Are we running a blitz? Like,
yes. You know your football.
yes, I know my football. I told you, Cliff, I know my football.
Wow,
And
okay,
there's so much there. Now, I raised a son, I raised a football player, he was a center lineman. His
okay.
job wasn't to stay in the pocket, his job was to protect the quarterback.
Yes.
And I think we can look at that like so many different roles that families have that God gives us. But I want us to stick here with father because this is so important. I want us to, kind of look from the perspective of what that role really means in a family. What does the quarterback daddy, now we're looking at the quarterback and leading a team because that's typically the role that leads the team. So, from your perspective, what is the true role of a father in a family?
Leadership, and I'll emphasize spiritual leadership. It is very, very difficult, probably impossible to lead your family without God being your head coach, the owner of your team. Because let's face it, the owner of your team is God, and he recruited you, much like a owner or a coach recruits a quarterback. They recruit you to win, to help that family or that team win. I call it win in the Super Bowl of life.
Mhm.
So that is the role. Because I always get the question, they say, well, what is it? Is this about football? And no, it's not really about football. You probably know more about football than I do, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just God drilled that concept into me. And I have watched enough football over my 71 years to know, the game well enough. But that's the key right there. God recruited you. He could have recruited anyone, but he recruited you to lead your team. No one can lead your team but you. But he gives us a playbook.
Mhm.
That playbook is the word of God, the Bible. And I always say the word of God in that Bible is not just words between two binders. It is a living organism. And just like if you were playing football, if you're a quarterback, your coach is going to pull you to the side and say, let's look at the playbook. And if you look at that playbook and you learn the plays, your team has the best chance of winning. So I would say, if I were to narrow it down, the father's role is to lead his family to win in the Super Bowl of life. And when I mentioned that this was something that hit me when I was a kid, my mom and dad got a divorce when I was a year and a half.
Mhm.
And I grew up in a neighborhood in the projects in Los Angeles. She moved us from Texas to Los Angeles when I was 8 years old. And we lived in some projects. It was probably about 300 units. And to this day, I can count the fathers that lived with their families, about 5 of them in the neighborhood. And I couldn't shake that image,
Mm-mm.
that experience.
Yeah.
So quarterback daddy means so much to me. And fathers, we're going to take hits. We're going to get sacked. We're going to throw some interceptions. We're going to get sat on the bench sometimes. But a determined quarterback will always show back up for the game.
Yeah.
And to me, that's more important than doing everything right. Just keep showing up. That's what happened with my oldest son. I just kept showing up, kept showing up, kept showing up. And he would tell me, Dad, quit calling me, quit texting me, quit emailing me. And then one day I reached out to his wife, actually. I said, you think he's ready to hear from me? And she said, yes. And so, there are many times, I felt like giving up. But
Mhm.
I want to, if there's a man watching this and the wives and the mothers, just keep praying for him, because a lot of men, when I minister to men, you shared earlier about the healing process. The
Mhm.
first thing that I do in my life purpose workshops, and it's called Awaken the Quarterback Daddy Within You. It's already inside of him.
Mhm.
We just have to be like, I call it like a midwife. That's what we do as life purpose coaches with Awaken. We help awaken that sleeping giant that's already there, and he wants to come out. He wants to come out, and that's what I see with these men. So when I bring them together in groups, the first thing we do, I call it healing for injured quarterback daddies.
Mm.
And you mentioned it about father hurt,
Mhm.
father wounds. And the majority of those men that show up, they carry that, much like I did.
Yeah.
Their fathers were not involved in their lives, or they were at home, but they were distant. So
Mhm.
either way, they missed out on that bonding. And that's what I'm telling you, your children want. They just want that bonding. They want that time. And I have not arrived. I'll admit it. I'm a busy person, but what I intentionally do is speak into their lives,
Yeah.
intentionally get them together and pray, intentionally open up the Bible. Those are the things that we have to do if we want our children to win in the Super Bowl of life.
Yeah. Oh, so much good stuff there, Cliff. The You shared about your parents being divorced when you were young and not growing up with a father. My parents got divorced when I was about 17 years old, and my father hasn't been in my life since. I'm 47 right now. So, a long time that my father has, not really been present. But like you said, even going back, I look at maybe like the last 10 years of when my parents were still together. My father was already checked out. So he was
Mhm.
present, but he wasn't emotionally present. He wasn't involved in the upbringing of me or my sister. He provided, he put a roof over our house, and he was a hard worker. Made sure that we had food on the table, clothes on our back, a roof over our head, and that I'm very grateful that he provided that for us. Emotionally, he wasn't present. So I grew up having that absence of a father for many years, even though it wasn't until I was 17 that he, like, physically, left the home. And I just wanna talk a little bit about how a father's presence actually, uh, can shape a child. You were very young and you saw the impact yourself. You grew up having, other fathers. You can count on one hand how many fathers were actually present, and I'm certain that that was something that you craved, and that was something I know that I craved. I remember, when I was in sporting activities, I was a cheerleader, and that's only because
Mhm.
I couldn't play football, Cliff. So, my father never came to a game. He never came to a competition. He never came to see a performance of mine. And I just remember always looking in the stands and seeing some of my other friends having their fathers present. And
Yes.
that was always something that crushed me. So I'm certain, like, we can relate to that of school assemblies, open houses, all of that. It was
Yes.
always my mom. And even though my dad was present during that time, he lived in our home. He was never involved in anything that we did. So looking now, like, it shaped me. There's lots of things that I carried because of that. There's lots of therapy that I've had to go through to heal that, like, brokenness that came from that. So in you having worked with so many different unique families and men, what would you say that father's presence, how it uniquely, really shapes a child? What is your experience with that?
It means everything.
Mm.
It really you can't leave anything out. Um, like you shared, you're singing, or you're cheerleading, or your son is out there playing football, basketball, or whatever. And I remember, the same feeling. wishing my dad was there. He still lived in Texas, so I knew it was, he's not going to be there, but that did not erase my desire for him to be there. And even now, there are things in my life, and I'm 71 years old. You see this gray beard, this white beard now. I say, wow, and I don't use it as an excuse, but I use it as motivation.
Mm,
I was actually preaching at a church, and a friend of ours that I grew up with, I had saw him at a funeral of one of the ladies in our neighborhood, and I hadn't seen him in years. And his mother got remarried, and he moved to the San Fernando Valley. And so when I saw him, I was like, "Hey, man, how you doing?" We reconnected, and so he was doing very well in life, career wise. And I asked him, "How did you get involved in medical device industry?" He said, "Well, my stepfather was in that industry, and he helped me get a job in that, and he developed that career." And that just stuck with me.
mm,
And so I think it was that night, the night before I was ministering, and I was asking God, I said, "Lord, how come you couldn't have blessed my mother with a stepdad
mm,
that could have helped my career and helped me advance in life?" And you know what he told me, Leslie? He said, "You be the best father to your children. Don't complain. I use that for a reason, for you to recognize how important it is."
yeah.
And since that time, I really don't ask that question anymore, because God kind of set me straight. It's
Mhm.
like, that use that as motivation to be the best father that you can be. And
Yeah.
I'll say that to all of the men out there, all of the fathers out there. Yes, your father may not have been there. Maybe he was there, but he wasn't there. But use it as leverage.
Mhm.
The best athletes in the world, they use uh, adversity to rise to the top in their field. And I can honestly say that that's probably the most thing I'm most proud about of myself, is that I did not give up. And he really showed me this after I was involved with Quarterback Daddy for a while. And he said, the thing that you were most embarrassed about, the thing that you um, condemned yourself about, is the same thing that I'm using you. And I tell men and fathers, I said, a quarterback, he may lose several games, he may have a losing season, but he keeps showing back up. He doesn't go play tennis, he doesn't go play baseball. He comes back right to the same place where he had his worst defeat.
Oh, that's good. That's so good,
And
Cliff.
that's what we have to do, man.
Yeah.
That's what I had to do. I had to just keep showing up to be the best father I could be. And God finally told me, forgive yourself.
Mm,
Once I forgave myself, I think that was one of the key factors where I wasn't afraid to continue to go after my oldest son, because I had forgiven myself,
mhm.
and God had given me another opportunity to raise, my youngest son and my daughter. And my wife and I have been together for 43 years. We dated for 2 years, so we've been together for 45 years. So there were things that my oldest son needed, and I had the courage to tell him. I said, "Look, the father that you knew when you were a kid, I'm a changed person, and let me be the father to you that I am now."
Yeah. Oh.
As you can see, I'm a crying dad.
No, and okay, Cliff, this is something that I think thank you for being so vulnerable, first off, because there is a stigma about men being emotional about stuff, and I think, like, that is something that's important for people to see. Um, I think that's for me, that was something that was missing with the relationship with my father, is that he was not an emotional man whatsoever. He never showed his emotions. He never like would say things like, I love you. I'm proud of you. Um, those were words that I never like, heard from my father. And kind of going
Yes.
back how you were saying about how you had wished that like your mom had met someone else that could kind of fulfill that father role for you. uh, I kind of similarities in that, like, I always thought, my mom is a beautiful, deserving woman, like, how come another man has never come to kind of fill that, and my mom always jokes, like, "Your father screwed me up so bad, I just wrote men off completely," you know?
Mm,
'Cause there was a lot of, abuse and stuff that went on and, in that marriage, but one of the things that I know that, like, God had told me in that also is that it when I've tried to reconcile with my father many times and have put myself out there and, just always constantly getting rejected, and I've finally gotten to that point where I'm like, "You know what? I'm done. If my father wants a relationship with me, it's gonna be in his timing, and I am very open and receptive. I've went above and beyond out of my way to try to establish
mhm,
a relationship with him, and it hasn't been reciprocated. So therefore,
mm.
I'm not gonna keep putting myself out there to get rejected, and if he chooses to have a relationship with me, it's gonna be in his time and his responsibility for that. So I've completely cut off contact with him, for probably about the last almost 2 years now, where I've just left it in his court, basically. Uh, but with that, I know that God has spoken to my heart in that any fatherly type of relationship that I'm seeking for, I've found it in God. My, husband is an amazing husband. We're going on 25 years of marriage also, and and this may sound weird, but I think you might understand where I'm getting with that. He's fulfilled more of a father role to me than my own father did. I've been with my husband longer than I was with my own father.
Yes.
So, my husband has been able to my husband is amazing, and I feel that God gifted me such an amazing man
Mhm,
to make up
mhm,
for the father that I didn't have. And he's an amazing father to our boys. He shows up, he's loving, he's compassionate, he tells our boys, "I love you, I'm proud of you," and he's been such a hardworking man. Um, so I know that God has blessed me in different ways of not
mhm.
having that fatherly figure in my life. And I remember that's something that, I remember praying when my mom was just going through hell with my father. I remember praying, "God." Well, this was part of the prayer was, "God, when I get married, I want a man that will cook and clean and treat me like a queen." It rhymed. He needs to cook, clean, and treat me like a queen. I
Mm,
am not
mm,
kidding, Cliff. That was my prayer all the time when I would hear my parents arguing and, my father was very abusive emotionally and physically, and my father was a very, machismo man that didn't lift a finger around
mm,
the house. We had to cater to him. He had 2 girls, so there was us 3 girls that the expectation because we were women is that we had to cater and do everything for him. So my father never cooked, cleaned, did any of that stuff.
mm.
So, that was my prayer is, "Lord, I'm gonna marry a man that cooks, cleans, and treats me like a queen." And I did. So God fulfilled that. I have a wonderful husband that fulfills all of that and is an amazing, father to our boys. And God restored a lot of what I lost in a father and fulfilled that in an amazing husband for me. And I'm certain you can, go back and say how, like you said, God fulfilled it in different ways for you. But I wanna ask you this, Cliff. What what is something that fathers carry that many women may not always see or understand?
Well, men are very, very protective of being vulnerable. Somehow, us men have been lied to from little boys that to not show your feelings, you know. And so they carry things that they don't they're fearful. It really is rooted in fear, to be perfectly honest.
Mhm,
It may seem like they may be rough and loud, you know, and sometimes mean, but it's really rooted in fear. And that's I think that's the hardest part for most families like yourself, that I can't speak for your dad, but I know that many men are fearful of seeing themselves in the mirror.
mm,
We shave, we comb our hair, brush our teeth and everything. But if we ever just allow that inner person to see that inner person in the mirror, it can be frightening. I had to go through that, and I remind myself too, uh, on a constant basis. See yourself in the mirror, especially in my marriage and my relationship with my children. Own your part of it. And once you get past that, because that giant within, that's the giant. That's who most men are afraid of, is that they don't want to face that giant that's staring them in the face. And is you. You're the giant, you're the obstacle. And so to admit that to yourself, that's probably the hardest thing for men to do. So um as wives and daughters, um that's one thing I could say. And then what you can do is allow him and encourage him. I'll put it this way: encourage him that if you got some wounds, it's okay for you to cry. That I'm your help meet. God brought me into your life to help you to be the man that you desire to be. Because unless a man is just downright evil, he desires to do the right thing. He may not know how to, and especially saying, "Hey, I love you,"
mm,
to encourage his wife, encourage his children. That a lot of times they weren't taught that, and they were lied to show your emotions. That's not manly. But uh, I would say that's the one thing that men carry that you may not be aware of. That is fear. Is rooted in fear. And I don't think I could say it any better than that.
yeah. Wow, thank you for that, Cliff. And I want to pause here for a moment because for the woman listening right now, this may be giving language to things that you felt and you just couldn't explain with your own father, maybe with your spouse, another father figure in your life. That vulnerability is huge. And I want to ask, Cliff, you openly shared your age. So you were you born in 1955, right?
54.
1954. Okay. My
Hmm.
parents were born in 55. So my parents are just about the same age as you. And I want to speak from this from a generational perspective because
Yes.
I have kind of observed, I wanna say this is just my own personal observation, I'm not I don't know that there is actual factual, like, research or study behind this. You grew up in a different era where men were the providers. Men went out and worked, women run the house. Men
Mhm.
did not show emotion. Men were the disciplinary and the leader in the home that, would basically run the show. Like you said, the quarterback, the leader, right?
Mhm.
And I kinda started to unpack a little bit. I started to just look at my family, my husband's family, um, friends and family that I may know that our parents are aging now in your age bracket, that's 70 to
Mhm.
80, and looking at the impact of what the father role had to us children, to this generation. So speaking to I'm Generation X. So kind of that Generation X, even maybe early millennials, of so many of us having daddy issues,
Mhm.
having mental health is on the rise now, and there's so much like depression and anxiety, and so many of the Gen X and millennials having to go into therapy for things that the generation before us passed into us, and we've been called the, like, emotional generation because we're connected
Mm.
with our emotions, where we were raised of the whole "suck it up, buttercup," just shake it off, keep going kinda thing, and
Mhm.
I wanna speak. How did you break that, Cliff? Because here you are, a man that grew up in that era that I'm talking about, and
Mhm.
you're not the typical man that I see in this age generation that I think you cried about maybe 3 times with me already. And it's good, I'm not saying it's bad.
Yes.
I don't think that I have seen that type of emotion from a man from your generation, and I'm not saying it in a bad way. I am completely being complimentary to that, because there is something inside of you that has allowed you to break that stigma of the generation that you came from, that if you show emotion or if you're vulnerable, you're weak. So what shifted for you, Cliff, to allow yourself to be vulnerable and to get away from what that generation that you grew up in, of what their determination or definition of fatherhood or a real man is?
You know, the honest answer is just God. I can't really say that one day I'm saying, I'm not going to be this macho type guy. I will say this, my mother's father, my grandfather, um, he was a crybaby. And so when we would go spend summers with him, um, he would always cry when we would leave and, openly, boo-hooing, And my dad's dad, however, I never saw him cry. And then my mom had 2 sisters, and my father had 2 sisters. And so I was always around my aunts and my grandmothers and my great-grandmother. So, I guess that had a lot to do with it, but I never consciously said, "I'm going to be this sensitive guy," but it just comes when I least expect it, and I'm just not good at, you know, keeping it in. But I am glad that I am because, uh, at one time, I used to get embarrassed about it, but being in ministry, you feel people's pain, and so that compassion comes out. So all I can say is God put it there. I definitely did not put it there because the guys I grew up with, in the projects, it was like, you just didn't go around crying. I didn't do it as a little boy. I knew enough. Don't do that around your friends, in school. But since I've matured, I've just been able to do it, and I don't know how to turn that spigot off.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even just in the crying, Cliff. I think in how you speak. Having raised your children, and I know one of your sons, and I've experienced him in ministry. One thing I don't
Mm,
know that I shared this yet. Cliff and I get to do ministry together at our church. Cliff and I serve
yes.
on our prayer and care team, and I've prayed beside Cliff and have heard him counsel many people at our church. And this is a man that I honestly look up to. When I came into the prayer team, I remember Cliff, just hearing you counsel people, and that was more of what I was talking about. Not so much that you, um, are emotional as far as tears, but talking about you love on people, Cliff. You truly demonstrate love and compassion towards people, and you don't come off with having a chip on your shoulder or being a prideful man that can't express emotion or, a sense of compassion towards other people. And that was kind of more of what I was saying, but it comes in the
Okay.
same it comes in the same of, like, the Holy Spirit just, fills you and gives you the compassion and the emotions that you need to carry the weight with people, and that's one of the things that I have seen you do exceptionally well. Being beside you, praying with people, is the compassion that you have for people. And it's not just a "suck it up, buttercup, you'll be okay," it is, you have true compassion, and you are able to carry people's weight and emotion and walk them through some very pivotal challenges in their life. And I've seen that displayed in you.
Mm,
And I truly know that that's God's work, because men of your generation aren't built like you. And
mm, wow.
that's what I was trying to get
Okay.
at.
All right.
But you answered it exactly what I knew. It's the Holy Spirit that allows you
Yes.
to see the emotions of others and be able to carry that. Now, Cliff, there's so many women listening right now. One of the things that I would love for you to speak to that woman and even that man that may be listening right now is, what would you say to the person who has been rejected or unseen by their own father?
Mm, mm. First of all, thank you for everything that you shared. I liken it to, when people go to a art museum or a art show, and some people can walk by a masterpiece and they just don't get it. They see whatever they see, it doesn't look like it's valuable to them, but someone else will pay $1 million for it because they recognize the value in it. Don't allow the enemy to lie to you that it's something wrong with your masterpiece, because God created you as a masterpiece. Excuse me. So if that rejection, like, people just don't understand, they don't recognize the value, and it can be your father, it can be men, it can be, anyone. It doesn't change the fact that you are a masterpiece, because that's what God created you to be. And if there was anything that I could say that would make sense, that's what God showed me. He created you as a masterpiece. It's not your job to convince that person that you're a masterpiece. If they can't see it, all you can do is pray for them, and then pray that their eyes become open,
Mhm.
because it's really blindness. Is really blindness. For whatever reason, that person is blind to recognizing the beauty in you as a daughter,
Yeah.
to recognize the beauty in you as a person. And so I hope that ministers to you.
That It definitely does. That's so encouraging, and it's just a reminder of whose we are. I'm not my father's child. I am, like, the Almighty Father's child, and
Yes,
that's how I have been able to kinda carry through, like I shared earlier, God just reminded me that He's my ultimate father, and He will fulfill above and beyond what I missed in my earthly father here.
yes,
Thank you for that. That's encouraging, and I'm certain that those are encouraging words for someone out there too who's had an absent, father in their life. Now, Cliff, what can we say to the person now? I've gone through my own healing journey of
mhm,
having an absent father and not having a good relationship with my own dad. And I've shared a lot of that openly here on the podcast with a lot of my listeners too. A lot of work, counseling, therapy, journaling, all of that.
yes,
And it's still constant work, constant, constant, constant.
mhm.
How can someone let's speak specifically to the men that come into your ministry of the quarterback daddy. How do you walk them through healing from father wounds?
Good question, good question. I tell my story, and, and as you can see, it's hard for me to hide my emotions. So I tell my story. I let them know, hey, I've been there. I'm still walking through this. God is still healing me. God is still causing me to grow. So I use myself as an example because the one thing that I've always been, I reverence God. I cannot preach to someone and act like I've never missed it and that I've arrived. So I think it starts with that. And then I've had a lot of men say, you know what? Thank you for being transparent that way. And it just helps them to open up and see another man, that is willing to tell his story and make himself vulnerable and then admit that he misses his father. I tell many stories about my dad, and most of the time, the men have gone through what I've gone through, or they're gone through with their children what I've gone through, and it just resonates with them.
Mm.
And I guess that's why God has entrusted me with quarterback daddy. I don't have a like a blueprint. I just I'm just me, and I just tell my story. And then by me being a certified uh, um, life purpose coach, I have learned some techniques that will help people to get to that place where they're ready to receive and ready to reflect on how God can cause them to be that man of God that God has called them to be.
So much wisdom in just that little thing that you just said right now. That 2 minutes right there, so much wisdom, Cliff. Now, what would you say for the women that are raising children right now, especially sons? I have 2 boys. My husband has been present. That's not the case for a lot of women out there. There's a lot of single moms out there that are raising sons, future
Mm.
fathers, young men right now. What is some wisdom that you could give to that single mom that is raising a son right now?
Keep them in church. Find that church where, is a trusted pastor, um, have prayer on a regular basis, open up the Bible at home, and surround him with trusted men of God. Be careful to, who you allow to speak into your child's life. Be watchful, you know, because the adversary, the devil, walks around seeking whom he may devour.
Mm.
So you can't trust everyone, to speak into your children's life, especially your son. Um, but God is He has handpicked individuals who will, I would say, show up and 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 then God will confirm it with signs following. I always say this, that God will bring people and situations into your life, or I call it attending unscheduled appointments, and it will change the trajectory of your life. So much like Moses and the burning bush, that bush would never burn out. So there are people that God will bring into your life, a pastor or a trusted leader, that you'll get a witness, and then your children will get a witness as well. If your child feels um, uneasy around someone, they may not always want to have a mentor in their life, but someone who has a proven track record, that because we do live in an age where you just can't expose your kids to everyone,
Mhm.
but be discerning, pray, and pay attention to the red flags. If there are some red flags, don't be shy of saying, that's that's not who I want around my child. Um, but there are people who are out there. We have a strong men's ministry at Revere Church. Pastor Caesar. Um, it's so many men who they revere God, and
Mhm.
if they revere God, and you listen to their conversation, listen, watch their activities, and if you can discern that and just continue to pray and speak to your sons' lives and your daughters. The one thing that my mother always told me was, Cliff, you're a leader, not a follower. And she passed away in 1981, on New Year's Day. And so that's the one thing that always stood out to me. Cliff, you're a leader, not a follower. And that kept me out of a lot of trouble. Not that I didn't, go out there and try the world for a little while, but that would always rise up in me. And when, people were wanting to do some things like, illegally, or do some things that, to try to get me to be with them, I was like, nah, I hear my mother's voice. And he's closed some doors too for me. I
Yeah.
wanted to be a famous musician. That was my goal in life, but God would always close those doors. And so don't be shy about praying for your sons and daughters, that doors close that they should not go into. So there are many things I could think of, but those are the things that are resonating in my spirit right now.
Ugh, all so good, so good. I think, Cliff, with that, everything that you said is just so on point, and I know for the moms out there, I had a praying mama. My mama was always, always praying for my sister and I, and like you said, using discernment. My mom was a single mom for a still a single mom to adult
Mhm.
children now, and I know
Right.
that one of the prayers that my mom would pray over us is that we had amazing spouses, which both my sister and I do. And God fulfilled many of her prayers through the men that my sister and I were able to marry and our children. And my sister and I are both, my sister has 2 boys and 2 girls. I have 2 boys. So just between my sister and I, we have 4. Actually, I'm gonna say men now. My
Mm,
youngest is the last to turn 18 in just, like, in July.
mhm.
So, 4 men that in our family that have been raised with a father fully present and an involved father, and I know that that
Yes.
was part of my mom's prayer, and for those single moms, prayer is everything. Like, I am a walking answered prayer from I know prayers that my
Yes.
mom had many, many times over. So I definitely just wanna kind of compound on what you said of really getting your kids in church, getting them involved and surrounding them with godly people that are gonna speak into their lives and fill that void of what a father, uh, you know, would have. Because I know my mom did that. My mom dragged us
Yes.
to church.
Yes.
Literally dragged.
Yeah.
If she would tell me, "If you don't go to church," like, she would ground me for the week if I didn't go to church on Sunday, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thank my mom for that. I still kind of I'm like, I don't know if that was the best, way to get me in church because it did kinda turn me off for a little bit. But I
Mhm.
know that my mama's prayers are, like, answered right now in where I'm at and what I'm doing. Now, Cliff, as we begin to wrap up here, I kinda wanna end on this. What is one quarterback principle that you wanna leave that you feel every family could use?
Wow. One principle. Recognize that God has given you a team. You talked about your son being a center, that staying in the pocket, it basically means that the front line, including the center, they form a pocket to protect the quarterback. And so recognize that God has given you a team. You can't go out there and do it by yourself. If you think about a quarterback and he doesn't have a offensive line or a center, there's no way he can win the game. And so recognize the team that God has surrounded you with. I think that's the most important. And then if sometimes they replace team members, on a football team. They go to another team or they get, rejected for whatever reason. So pay attention to the ones who God has sent you. And they may not always look like what you think they would look like or have the quote unquote outward appearance that, you know, we tend to look at who's in your corner, who's there in the good times and in the bad times. That would be the one thing I would say to a father in that leadership role.
So on point, Cliff. I love the football analogy of all of this. We can go on and talk forever, Cliff, because I love football. I love this topic. I love and adore you. And I wish we had more time. I really wish we had more time.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because there's so much to unravel in that. And looking at your team, and that's like one thing I recently have been looking at myself is who God has put in my circle. We just came off of a teaching this last weekend, at church from, our pastor, Pastor Bianca, and she was talking about, like, the people in your circle, basically,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
important it is for us to know the different seasons that people have in our life. And
Mhm,
when you look at a team, it's like, hey, some players, they get traded, others
mhm.
come, some get rejected, and knowing who's that line to protect you.
Yes.
So, just so good. So
Mhm.
dang good. All right,
Yes.
Cliff, this God, this has been such a meaningful conversation. You spoke to my spirit
Thank you.
in so many different ways, and I know that you're gonna speak to so many different listeners today, but you have some exciting things to share. And I just want to wrap up. If you can share with our listeners, you have an exciting contest going on, you have a book coming out, and I just want the listeners to know all the ways to connect and support you.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And before I say that, the title of your show, Your Joyful Order, it is resonating even more so with me. And I believe that it's resonating with your audience. And I would love to have you as a guest on my show as well, because I'm doing a series called the quarterback interview series. And so women can be quarterbacks as well,
Yes, we
so I
can.
definitely want to invite you, especially since you are so well versed in football.
Oh,
So
don't get me started on football,
yeah,
Cliff.
yeah. All right.
Yes,
All
for
right.
sure. I would love
Mm,
to come.
Definitely got
Yes.
to have you on there. But yes, I do have a book that's been out for a couple of years called Faith Fuel for Your Journey. You can find it on Amazon.
Mm.
It's the color of the cover is red
Okay.
on purpose, and basically what I talk about are real stories, including my own, where it seems like you're running out of faith,
Mm.
much like if you're taking a cross country trip and your gas tank is low. God will always have a gas station nearby for you to refill you of your faith so that you can get to where he's taking you. Um, and then I'm working on the Quarterback Daddy book, and you can see sort of the image in back of me. And it's all about winning by staying in the pocket. And so we're believing God to release it on or around Father's Day. So thank you again for allowing me to be on your show. And then I entered into a contest called Entrepreneur of Impact. And the spokesperson is none other than Damon John from Shark Tank, but it's also connected with a nonprofit organization called Gen Youth, who they help children who lack healthy foods, um, and also healthy exercise. And so, love for you to go out and vote for me. The competition, I feel like I'm in the playoffs right now. I'm in the uh, quarterfinals right now, uh, looking to go to the semifinals and then the final round. And of course, he'll help me to get closer to fulfilling the vision that God has for me in my ministry. So I thank you for your support.
Yes, so exciting. And all the ways that you can support Cliff, a link to his books, a link to go and vote for him, a link to his website. That's all going to be in the show notes. So you guys can just stay connected with Cliff there. And if this conversation just really impacted you, I want to
Mm.
encourage you to share this episode with a friend. This conversation is just such a great reminder of how deeply fatherhood shapes us and how much power can come from just healing those parts of us that felt like we were, kind of shafted of a true father. And I just
Mm.
wanna encourage all of the women out there to really just seek your spiritual father if you are lacking that spiritual, or if you're lacking that father role. There's so much healing in our heavenly Father that can fill that void that you may have had of an earthly father, and that is speaking from someone who didn't have the earthly father that I wanted to. And I just wanna
Yes.
encourage you to find that healing, in our Heavenly Father. And Cliff,
Yeah.
again, just thank you so much. I know that this episode is just gonna impact so many lives. And if
Thank
you
you.
know
Thank you.
someone that this conversation, will be a blessing to, please share it. Share it on your social.
Yes.
Send this episode to
Yes.
a friend and come back to next week's episode. We got exciting things to continue sharing. And y'all, I'm going to be on Cliff's podcast. So you want to continue the conversation
Man.
of football? I'll be sharing
Yes.
that too. So we'll share all of the fun stuff that Cliff and I will be doing. And until next time, friends, just continue to keep chasing joy. See ya.
Amen. God bless you.